Hi, my name is Esteban, and we're going to be practicing standing poses today. Come to stand at the front of your mat in Tadasana, mountain pose. Inner edges of the feet together. Close the eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath in. Feel the breath as it rises up the spine. And allow the exhale to drop back down towards the pelvic floor. Imagine for a moment that you're standing on top of a flagpole. So the weight has to be evenly distributed front and back of the foot, so there's no leaning forward or back. Notice which leg you tend to favor, and then try to bring the weight evenly centered, right and left. To engage the arches of the feet, you can lift the toes up. Feel how the rooting action of the legs helps you grow the crown of the head taller towards the ceiling, and then slightly externally rotate the arms to spread the collarbone. So we're going to do a brief meditation here, just to ground ourselves in awareness of the body. So our practice is one of becoming mindful of what we're doing. Our mindfulness practice is very simple in theory. It's very challenging to actually execute. A very simple mantra that you can use to help you is to follow the breath, and as you're inhaling, repeat breathing in, and as you're exhaling, repeat breathing out. Dropping into an awareness of the physical body. Where are areas of interest? Where are areas of awareness or lack of awareness? See if using the breath you can spread the awareness into areas of your body you might not necessarily have noticed before. Trying to balance the ability to breathe fully with the ability to breathe calmly. So before we move into our standing poses, we're going to do a few half sun salutations and then one or two sun salutations to warm up. Inhale to extend the arms up towards the ceiling. Option to look up at the palm. Exhale, fold forward, keep a flat spine, and then bend the knees if you need as you drop the head down. Inhale to lift halfway, opening the chest, flattening the spine. Exhaling, fold forward. Inhaling to fan the arms back up, grow tall. Exhaling, hands back down. And we'll do that a few more times. Inhaling, arms up. Exhaling, fold forward, bending the knees if you need to keep a neutral spine. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to fold forward. Inhale to lift all the way back up, growing a little bit taller this time. Exhaling to come back to Tadasana, and make sure that you're protecting the lower back when we move through these. So bend the knees as much as you need, and don't puff the hips out when you're extending the arms up. Really try to keep neutral hips. Two more. Inhaling, arms up. Exhaling, fold forward. Inhaling to lift halfway. Exhaling to drop down. Inhaling to lift all the way back up. Exhaling, hands down. So the Sanskrit name of the poses. Tadasana, inhaling to Urdhva Hastasana. Exhaling to Uttanasana. Inhaling to Ardha Uttanasana, half lift. Exhaling back to Uttanasana. Inhaling back to Urdhva Hastasana. And on the exhale, Tadasana. Let's build up on those a little bit. Inhaling, arms up. Exhaling, fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. And then exhale this time, bring both hands to the front of the mat. Step one foot in the other. Pay attention to which foot stepped back so that we can get into the habit of alternating. Take a few deep breaths here in our plank pose, engaging the core. Notice if just the six-pack is working as you crunch to hold the pose, and if so, try to spread the belly a little bit. Find an element of a back bend. So that doesn't mean that the hips drop, and in fact, if you feel that the hips are dropping, drop the knees gently to the mat. And so you can keep a straight line from knee through shoulder. On this transition, it's your choice. You can either move through Chaturanga Dandasana, which is a high plank, to a low plank on an exhale, to a back bend on an inhale, and to an exhale into downward dog. Or you can just press straight back into downward dog, and this is where we meet. So this is our first downward dog, very fluid version of the pose. The heels are swiveling in and out. The knees are bending very deeply. Playing around with the actions of the shoulder blades as well. So we're just growing our awareness of the body before we worry too much about dropping into a strict alignment of the pose. We'll be talking about alignment later on. Taking about 5 breaths here. Inhale to lift the hips up. Exhale to bend the knees deeply. look forward and step the foot that stepped back forward again, and we're back in our forward fold. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to Uttanasana. Inhale all the way back up. Urdhva Hastasana, option to touch palms. Exhaling, hands back down. Let's do 2 more of those to warm up. Inhale. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale, hands to mat, opposite foot steps back. So the left knee bends, sending the foot gently to the back of the mat, and then joining. So we do that for 2 reasons. We try to avoid repetitive stress injury, and we also try to practice mindfully. So the body's not just moving automatically, we're aware of what we're doing. So we're counting the breaths, we're keeping track of which side is going when, maybe 30 seconds in plank pose. And at the end of those 30 seconds, you can either press the hips back and up into down dog, or, if this works for the lower back, moving to chaturanga. And you can drop the knees if you need. Inhaling to a cobra or an up dog, depending on what the lower back allows. Exhaling to downward facing dog. So we can talk a little bit more about alignment now that we're warming up. You can always keep pedaling the hips and keep an element of dynamic action in the pose. Actively press through the hands, spread the fingertips, root through each knuckle evenly. Press the shoulders away from the ears. So we're protracting the shoulder blades. That means lifting them away from one another and hugging the upper side ribs. And that helps us lift the arms into the mat, which helps extend the tailbone up. And if you feel that you have a hard time finding a straight line from hip through wrist, bend the knees. Bend the knees as deeply as you need to help encourage that back bending, chest opening action. And then you can work on dropping the heels down again. To the front of the mat, inhale to lift the heels up. Exhaling to bend the knees, look forward. Back to Uttanasana. Inhaling, lifting halfway. Exhaling, fold forward. Inhaling to reach the arms all the way back up towards the ceiling. And exhaling to bring the hands by the hips. So take a few deep breaths here. We'll do 1 more so we can talk about alignment a little bit more. And I'll offer the jump back option if that's interesting to you. Inhale to extend the arms up. Exhale to fold forward. Inhale to lift halfway. Now if you're doing the jump back, bringing the hands down, bending the knees deeply, going straight into low plank, inhaling to upward facing dog, and exhaling to downward facing dog. And don't rush the upward dog. Oftentimes we tend to just kind of breeze through it and forget that it's a pose in and of itself. So when you're in it, really press the shoulders away from the ears. Feel how the shoulder blades press the chest forward, elbows stay pinned in towards one another. And you can always find a little bit of movement if it's interesting in the pose, right? Moving around in the shoulder blades. 3 to 5 breaths in downward facing dog. Really waking up the pose now. We'll be moving to our standing poses shortly. So our last down dog we're exploring. And at the end of 5 breaths, drop the knees and come into Balasana, child's pose. So maybe the hands come to the outer ankles and the shoulders drape forward. If the forehead can't reach the mat or if it's uncomfortable for the neck, maybe a stacked hand variation. And just take a few deep breaths here. Remind yourself of your intention to practice intentionally. So instead of walking around as we often do with the body doing one thing and the mind doing something completely different, continue to anchor the awareness or the attention of the mind back to the breath, back to the body, so that whatever the body is doing, the mind is fully present for it. So we learn to appreciate sensation as it arises without the brain's unnecessary and often distorting interpretations of it. A few more breaths in child's pose. And now we've warmed up, let's move to our standing poses. So we'll walk the hands forward, press the palms down, inhale, tuck the toes, exhale, press the hips back and up. Inhale to lift the tailbone up, Exhale, bend the knees. If you're hopping, go up. Land at the front of the mat. Inhale, lift halfway. And then Uttanasana, forward fold. Now you can step the feet a little bit wider apart, maybe hip width apart. You can bring the hands to the mat. You can bring hand to opposite elbow. Mindful of relaxing the base of the skull. So oftentimes what I see is the forward fold is almost there, but the neck doesn't want to relax. So just relax the neck down. Swing the head around. Very common also, legs straight, back rounding. So this isn't really a healthy way to move into the forward fold because the hamstrings reach their limit and the spine moves out of a neutral alignment. So what you can do to counteract that is bend the knees a little bit, create contact between abdomen and thigh, and then instead of thinking, I'm going to press the head and shoulders down, think, I'm going to lift the sitting bones up. So we're pulling length into the back of the leg, and we can fold forward with a more neutral spine. And the deepest forward folders are able to rest their forehead to their shin pretty much with a totally neutral back. And that's the most sustainable way to practice. Take a deep breath in and a full breath out. Inhale to come all the way to stand, reach the arms up, growing tall, and exhaling, hands by the hips, Tadasana, mountain pose. So take a few breaths here. We're going to switch the orientation of our practice now. After your few breaths, come to stand at the center of the mat. Keep a block handy on either side of the mat. So we're going to practice our standing poses with the Iyengar format. That means that we're going to focus on each pose one at a time, detailed alignment. Standing at the center of the mat, from Tadasana, bring the fingertips together, bend the knees, step the feet wide apart. So the hands are fanning out, the shoulders are dropping down. Let's do Trikonasana, triangle pose. Turn the right toes out to the right, 90 degrees. Turn the left toes 15 to 30 degrees as the left heel kicks back. Inhale to extend right arm up towards the ceiling. Notice the external rotation of the right arm, creating length from hip to fingertips. Keeping that length, exhale, reach the right hand forward. Press the upper right hip back and bring the hand to maybe the mat, maybe your shin as long as you're not pushing down too much, maybe a block. Block is a very nice tool to use. So I'm not worried about building the 10th floor of a building before the first floor is built. So let's begin at the ground and move up. First, are the arches of the feet, are the soles of the feet toned? Lifting the toes up can help ensure that. If there's too much tension at the back of the knee, you can micro bend the knee. We don't want to hurt the joints, but working towards straight leg by engaging both quadricep thigh muscles. Left hand on hip, and we begin to roll the rib cage open. So the left ribs roll up towards the ceiling, the right ribs roll down. Don't allow the right side waist to shorten. And then eventually, maybe, the left arm floats up. Shoulder blades pretty much neutral. So if we were just in a standing pose, the shoulder blades would be doing the same thing because the action of lifting the chest comes from the rotation. So we've been here for a few breaths. Let's do the second side. Inhale to come up, hands spreading. Turn the toes right away, left toes out 90 degrees, right toes 15 to 30 degrees. Inhaling to extend left arm up. Exhale, reach the left hand forward, and once again, hands to mat, hands to shin, maybe hand on block. Ashtangis practice hooking onto the big toe. So if that's interesting, you can explore it. Right? Every pose has many different variations we can play around with, as long as it's safe. So in general, we seek stability before mobility. So if the pose isn't safe and stable, no point in looking for a deeper pose. But as long as that's the case, we can extend the arm up. If you want to just work on the chest opening, spreading action of the pose, you can maybe reach the hand around and grab a bind of the upper left thigh. So a little bit more subtle action. As you root through the base of the left big toe mound, feel how the leg straightens, feel how the upper left hip presses back. That allows you to lengthen the tailbone back as the chest lifts forward. Don't give in to the temptation to round. Every inhale, we spread the breath. Every exhale, softening into the pose. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, back to stand. Side angle pose, Uttita Parshva Konasana. Turning the right toes out to the right, kicking the left heel back. Same thing as triangle pose, but with the right knee bent. Inhale to extend right arm up. Exhaling to bend into a 90-degree angle of the right knee, and you can either bring elbow to knee. That's a good variation to start with. You can maybe bring the hand to the outer right foot, and maybe using a block, maybe not using a block, your choice. Tented fingers is fine as long as you have something to root into. Actively kick back through the left leg. Engage the lower left side waist. Open up through the chest. The traditional version of the pose has us lift the hand up, then turn the palm forward, and then reach the hand forward. You can try that, or keeping the left hand on hip, try maybe swiveling the left arm up. And what that allows you to do is feel the upward rotation of the left shoulder blade that helps us open up into the chest, keep lengthening the arm, reaching through the fingertips. And so we breathe in, Utthita Parsvakonasana, extended side angle pose. Take a deep breath in, exhaling to stand, second side, toes point to the left, inhale to extend left arm up, and then choosing your variation. Left elbow to left knee, left hand to outer left foot. Don't allow the knee to move beyond the ankle, so we try to keep the shin perpendicular to the floor. Right hand on hip, opening the chest, extending the arm forward. So this is the pose that will teach you external rotation, right? That ability to fan the shoulder blades up and out, and you can just keep spiraling the hand further and further out to find more and more length in the right side body. And then breathe. So don't forget to breathe in your standing poses, in any pose, but standing poses sometimes can get a little bit claustrophobic if we're not breathing. Take a deep breath in, exhaling, back to center. So we're going to do one more of these neutral or externally rotated poses. Turn the right toes to the side, kick the left heel back, and they're called externally rotated. You'll see in a moment because we're rolling the back hip open as opposed to keeping them neutral, which is where we'll go for our rotating poses. So this is a pose called half moon pose, Ardha Chandrasana. Inhale to extend right arm up. Exhale to bend into the front knee. Same way as we started with Parsvakonasana. If you have any props in the way, maybe move them out of the way. Grabbing a block if you need. Walk the front hand forward. Pick the back leg up. And so Ardha Chandrasana on a block or off the block, as long as you have something to press into. So floating the fingers is a recipe for injury if you fall on those fingers. First, elevate the back leg, then lift the chest, and if it's still available, maybe extend the left arm up. So Ardha Chandrasana, stay breathing in the pose. Take a deep breath in, exhaling very, very gently, landing the back leg, and we'll do our second side. Inhale, left arm up. Exhale, bend into the side angle setup, and then walking the hand and or block forward, picking the back leg up. So again, worrying about the first floor before we think about the 10th floor. So you can bend the standing leg a little bit if it feels that that would be helpful in finding stability. Try to keep the toes pointing straight forward, so don't let them point either right or left. Finding that lift of the chest, maybe opening the arms. Half moon pose. Taking a few breaths here. Relax the jaw, stay calm with the breath. And on an exhale, slowly landing down, and let's do a forward fold. Prasarita Padottanasana. Toes point straight forward, inner edges of the feet parallel to one another. Inhale to lift the chest up. Exhale, fold forward. So the traditional variations, there are 4 of. You can bring the hands to the mat and walk them back so that they're in line with the feet. You can always adjust the stance if you need a little more space. You can bring the hands to hips. You can hook onto the big toes. Or you can interlace the hands by the lower back. So those are the traditional variations. Non-traditional variations are infinite. So you can really kind of play around, move fluidly from one side to the next. I like to kind of neutralize the hips a little bit from one standing pose sequence to the next. Maybe opposite hand to opposite elbow. Some of you might be able to drop the head down towards the mat. So Prasarita Padottanasana, wide-legged forward fold. Take a deep breath in. One more breath out. And then inhaling to lift the chest, come all the way back to stand, and we'll do our revolving standing poses. Toe heel the feet in a couple of times, so we want a little bit shorter stance than we had before. The arm position, very important here, and you can modify as you need for our standing poses. So the next pose we're going to do is called Parshvottanasana. Some of you will be able to and interested in bringing the palms together. If that's not interesting today, knuckles together, hand to opposite elbow, hands on hips, and you can also use a block if you need the support. So the feet may be 2.5 to 3.5 feet apart. Turn the right toes out 90 degrees, left heel kicks back. Now, the back leg was externally rotated before, the hip was opening up. We're trying to not do that here. We're trying to keep both frontal hip bones parallel to whatever wall you're facing. So if you were to step the back foot forward, both hips would touch the wall at the same time. To help do that, you can step the left foot further to the left and step the left foot further forward to help find some of that rotation in the hip. And it's really useful because in our triangle pose, in our side angle pose, this is okay, but when I'm reaching across for a revolving pose, really difficult to do if the hip is way back here. So keeping the hips neutral helps with that action. So our first semi-revolving pose, kind of moving towards that, Parshvottanasana, choose the arm variation that you want to use. Root actively through the feet, maybe lift the toes for a moment. Inhale, extend the chest up. Exhale, fold forward. So as you root through the base of the right big toe, feel how you can press the right hip back. We don't collapse in the chest. We lift up through the chest, engage the core, and tone the legs. This pose is extremely challenging for most bodies at first. The more you practice it, the more you'll be able to drop into a calm version of the pose. And if we were to all practice this pose for 1,000 days straight with our attention to alignment, eventually the forehead would just land on the shin and we would have a nice neutral spine. Take a deep breath in, one more breath out. You can undo the bind or keep it for the next pose or the next side of the pose. Parshvottanasana, turn the toes to the opposite direction. If you need, step the right foot to the right a little bit to square the right hip forward. Inhale, open up the chest. Exhale, fold forward. So very, very quickly, you're going to run into your left hamstring. Listen to it. Listen to the left hamstring. Don't push beyond that point. Actively kick back through the right heel. And if you can imagine your hips on all three planes of movement, don't let them be out of balance side to side. Bring them in towards the midline. Firm them in towards one another. Don't allow one to be higher up than the other. They're equidistant from floor and ceiling. And then check in and make sure that you have a flat tailbone. So we don't round and tuck the tailbone, we flatten the tailbone, and that helps us maintain a nice lift in the spine. Take a deep breath in. One more breath out. Inhaling back to stand. And we'll do 2 more standing poses. Turn the right toes back in that original direction. Kick the left heel if you need to step the foot out. Do that. Square the hip. Revolving triangle pose. Useful to have a block handy on the outer right foot. Inhale to extend left arm up. Exhale, press the right thumb into the right hip to help encourage it back. Reach the left hand forward and bring the hand to the outer right foot. Now, if you need, this is where a block is a very good idea. Focus on the base of the pose first. So can you straighten both legs? If not, that's the work today. Can you ground the back heel? If not, that's the work. If that's achieved, you can keep neutralizing the hips, lift up through the front of the chest, find that rotation of the rib cage that allows you to drop left ribs down and roll right ribs up, and then eventually maybe the right hand extends up towards the ceiling. So Parivrita Trikonasana, revolving triangle pose. Very challenging pose, very worthwhile practicing to become better at. Take a deep breath in, mindfully on an exhale, coming back, and we'll do our second side. Maybe you go straight there. Inhaling to extend right arm up. Exhaling to reach the right hand forward. Press the upper left hip back. And if you're not using a block, bringing the hand down as long as you have something to root into. Tented fingers I'm happy for. But option to use a block as always, any height that's useful. Don't collapse in the spine. Lift the chest. We do enough collapsing in our daily lives as it is. Press the upper left hip back, lengthen the chest forward, and again, not a goal of the pose, but a result of the deepening of the pose. Maybe left arm extends up. Don't let the shoulders hunch, drop them down. And continue to breathe. Remind yourself that you have to continue to breathe. Finding a balance between stability, strength, and ease and softness in the pose. Take a deep breath in, exhaling very slowly, coming back, and we'll do our last standing pose, revolving side angle pose. Turning the right toes out to the right again, pick the back heel up. Two variations that work. You can either bring the palms together and on an exhale, bring left elbow to outer right knee, or hooking the outer left armpit to the outer right knee. And do make sure that you can hook it fully, right? So if you're somewhere in between, maybe keep working palms together. For now, those of you who've done the bind, keep the back leg straight, find the rotation, extend left arm forward and up, Parivrita, Parsvakonasana, revolving side angle pose. And so extending right fingertips forward, kicking the back leg straight, deepening the pose on each exhale. And let's come to the second side. Very mindfully, inhale, come back to stand. The left heel picks up. Choose your variation, palms together maybe. Right elbow to outer left knee, or if you're doing the full bind, working from here. So we hold the pose for a few breaths. There's no rush to come out of it. Relax the muscles of the face. Take a deep breath in, and on an exhale, come back to stand. Forward fold of your choice, so wide-legged forward fold, or maybe a little bit shorter stance. Inhale to lift the chest, and exhale, folding forward. Swing the head around, swing the shoulders around, relax the neck. If you're in a forward fold with the feet wide apart, same thing. Maybe playing around with one of those variations. Take a few more breaths in your wide-legged forward fold. And then inhale to lift the chest, coming all the way back to stand, stepping the feet together. Tadasana, mountain pose. So very good. We've done a good amount of standing poses. We did 5 or 6 today. A lot of attention to alignment. Standing poses are the foundation of your practice. So any practice that you're going to be doing should include standing poses, and they prepare you for any other poses that you want to do. From Tadasana, nothing fancy. Come to the mat. Extend the legs forward. If you have some props, like a blanket, you can use the blanket behind the head. If your lower back is tender from the standing poses, maybe you roll the blanket up, or if you have a bolster, you could use a bolster and slide it behind the knees, bending the knees, bringing the blanket behind the knees to give them a little bit of height. And then the palms can come to low abdomen, maybe one to low abdomen, one at heart center. Maybe you prefer a nice wide armed Shavasana. So dropping back into an awareness of the body. Feel the inhale as it rises up the spine, spreading front body up, back body down, right and left side bodies to the sides. And on the exhale, let go of any unnecessary work. So the time for effort has passed. Now is the time for release. First releasing the physical body, then releasing the mental body, taking a step back and just observing the mental discourse And noticing if it's useful or if it's not useful to your immediate circumstance. So this concludes our practice. Breathe in Shavasana for as long as you'd like.